The Undertaker is now officially resting in peace. And as Mark Calloway finds odd jobs around the house to pass the time, maybe fixing a table, climbing up a ladder to change a light bulb, tightening some screws on a chair, we get ready for our own furniture-flavoured pay-per-view spectacular, because the journey never really ends, does it? This is Raw Graded. We open with Team Raw and Adam Pearce in the ring. Adam Pearce putting over Survivor Series and Team Raw's dominance 24 hours earlier. He promises one of them is going to get a chance at Drew McIntyre's WWE title. He asks everybody to state their case as to why it should be them. Sheamus puts over how Drew McIntyre is his bestest friend and how happy he is for him. AJ Styles says he's the MVP of the team. Keith Lee reminds us that he pinned the team captain at Survivor Series. Riddle says he just wants the Claymore from Drew. Says it'll go well with the crown that he's now allegedly taken from King Corbin. And Braun Strowman gets very angry that he's the last person that they ask. He ends up throttling Adam Pearce and headbutting him. And that brings the segment to an end. I guess we'll hear from Adam Pearce a bit later on tonight. Byron Saxon says it's the most shocking thing he's ever seen on Raw. Braun Strowman headbutting Adam Pearce. A show that literally in the 90s contained a home invasion with guns. And a show that contained an embalmment at one point, a near embalmment rather. This is the most shocking. Okay, hun. B- for this opening bit. There were some good lines back and forth. I thought it was a very odd end to the segment. But it was fine as a way to start Raw. Gives us something that we weave throughout the night. Since we are lacking Drew McIntyre this evening, there needs to be some flow that doesn't involve the champ, and I guess this is going to be it. First in-ring competition is the Raw Tag Team titles on the line. It's the New Day versus the Hurt Business. It's a match that came about when the Hurt Business got in the face of the New Day earlier on today, challenged them to a match, and Xavier Woods accepted on behalf of the New Day. Something that Kofi was a little bit upset by because it was meant to be the New Day's night off, so he was a little bit furious with that happening. Xavier Woods on the receiving end for a lot of the opening for this one. Kofi ends up getting the hot tag, running wild for a bit, but then Cedric Alexander pulls Kofi off the top rope and he goes crashing to the floor. Him and Shelton fighting outside the ring. Neither make the 10 count, so it's a double count out. New Day head off at the ramp, counts as a defense. MVP encourages them to get back into the ring and restart the match, which they do, and then we get the match proper. Kofi starts strong, but ends up landing badly over the rope and hurting his leg, and then we have Cedric and Shelton just wearing down that leg of Kofi. He can't make a tag for love nor money. Either he's clipped under his leg or Xavier gets knocked off of the ring apron. Eventually, he manages to fight out of a leg lock and hobbles to his corner, tags Xavier Woods, who just runs wild from here. It really starts to light things up once again. The end of the match comes, though, when Kofi lands a seesaw dive onto the outside, and in the ring, Shelton Benjamin goes for a powerbomb, but Xavier Woods turns it into a sunset flip for the 1, 2, 3. New Day retain the tag team titles. This, for me, was an A- to start things. I was a bit concerned by that non-finish a couple of minutes into part one, but then when they got back in the ring, they really went for it. It wasn't a match that was without some of its issues, but the body of what they did was excellent. Like the Kofi on the receiving end of a beating for a long time, you really bought that. And just generally the flow that these guys have together is really nice. And I'm enjoying where we're going with this. Again, it's a match I will happily see happen. And I do believe the Hurt Business will take the belts from the New Day. I see that becoming a thing. But yeah, great hot way to start Monday Night Raw this week. Love the chemistry of the New Day and the Hurt Business. I'm giving it an A-. Adam Pearce backstage says Braun Strowman has been removed from the building. He's about to make his announcement about the top contendership for the WWE title, but he's interrupted by Bobby Lashley, who says, actually, I won my match at Survivor Series, you know, FYI. And then he's interrupted by Randy Orton, who wants a quiet word as well. And after all of this goes down, Adam Pearce makes his announcement. Tonight, there will be 3 singles matches. The winners of each singles match will go into a triple threat next week, and the winner of that, quote Adam Pearce, will face Drew McIntyre for the WWE Championship. Yeah, I could make loads of jokes about that, but You know what? I'm going to leave that with Ross. WTF moments later today on the Cultaholic YouTube channel. The first match of this series is happening right now. It is Riddle versus Sheamus in a rematch from a few weeks ago. This starts with some fiery ground and pound, with Sheamus starting to take the lead in this one. Riddle keeps finding an answer though. Just as Sheamus starts to get a little bit of groove on, Riddle's able to get away from it, outmaneuver him, send him packing. It's very clever wrestling style. They alternate between big strikes and some heavy grappling to start this matchup. Riddle lands a final flash and an exploder suplex outside the ring that gets him a near fall. Riddle survives an Irish curse backbreaker, a clover leaf, and a brogue kick. He manages to get a 2 on a brogue kick. He peels out a final flash, goes up for the floating bro, but Sheamus stops him and hits him with an avalanche white noise for a near fall. Just a huge move. Great part of this match. And the end comes with Sheamus going for a brogue kick, but Matt Riddle collapses before he even gets there. And from that, Sheamus and Riddle end up going into one more lockup. Sheamus picks him up for an electric chair. Riddle rolls through with a victory roll. Sheamus manages to roll through that. Looks like he's going for the clover leaf. And then Riddle rolls him up into that. Nice tight cover. 1, 2, 3. Riddle has pinned Sheamus. And Riddle is in the triple threat match next week. Or A+. I very rarely give out an A+ on Monday Night Raw, but I'm giving out an A+ this week. These two were excellent. A flawless encounter between these two that just built nicely throughout. Just that grappling start, heavy strikes, Riddle surviving everything, Sheamus surviving everything. And then that finish where you still didn't know who was going to take it home at that point. Really big fan of this match, and these guys just gel so well together. More of this, please. A+ for Riddle and Sheamus. Nice one. Lana is confronted by Asuka backstage. So earlier on, Lana did an interview where she was talking about becoming the sole survivor at Survivor Series and was asked whether she challenged for the Raw Women's Championship. And she was a bit dismissive of that idea. But Asuka, she's up for a challenge. She's up for a fight. So Asuka went up and went, I accept your challenge. So we're getting Asuka versus Lana later tonight on Raw. Firefly Funhouse up next, and with Nikki Cross versus Alexa Bliss happening later tonight. Tonight's show is all about the repulsiveness of friendship. Bray Wyatt reflecting briefly on his friendship with Randy Orton that led to the Wyatt compound being burned down. Nice little nod there. We then get an appearance by, of course, the Friendship Frog. You know who the Friendship Frog is. We always talk about the Friendship Frog. He's there to bestow the goodness of friendship. And with a little quick word from Bray Wyatt, Alexa Bliss thanks the Friendship Frog by battering him to death. We then get a tribute video to the Friendship Frog, including like a WWE year of birth, year of date placard, which is a nice little touch. They have a little moment of silence before Bray Wyatt says that he's very sorry and it's a shame that he croaked. We all have a good laugh. And that ends the segment. Nikki versus Bliss later on tonight. This was very funny. This was very funny. Asuka versus Lana up next. Before the match gets started, Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler make their way down to the ring, and the bell sounds on the Raw Women's Championship match. And Lana nearly gets a pin dead early on. She gets a cheeky roll-up, but only gets a 2. The Asuka ends up flying outside the ring at one point, gets in the face of Nia Jax and Baszler, who are just barking at her. Asuka throws water at Jax and Baszler. They jump her. This is a DQ. They look like they're going to put Asuka through the table, but Lana comes to the rescue, saves Asuka, and then Baszler and Jax challenge them both to a tag match right there and then, which is what happens. We then get Lana at the mercy of Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler. For the majority of this match, she's getting a good old shoe-in. She's getting stretched and pulled. And it's just after she was stretched within an inch of her life by Shayna Baszler that she manages to find a cheeky opening and get the hot tag to Asuka, who runs wild on everybody else. As Lana gets onto the ring apron, she's pulled down by Nia Jax, and it looks like Jax wants to put her through the table for the 10th time. Lana's able to fight away from it, and Jax, enraged, charges at Lana outside the ring. Lana moves, and Jax goes flying flying over the announce table. Baszler grabs the hair of Lana through the ropes, but Asuka takes her moment, rolls up Shayna, and gets the 1, 2, 3. Lana legs it up the ramp. She doesn't want to go anywhere near Jackson Baszler right now. This match I'm giving a B- to. I think Lana played a really good role as a babyface in peril here. Asuka was great for her role here as well. Yeah, it was good. Match was good. We're getting a table match between Jax and Lana. That has to be the way that we go, and that has to be the way that this ends, right? Backstage, Riddle is discussing business plans with MVP. He's got loads of great ideas as Riddle, including, because everybody loves pizza and because everybody loves yogurt, pizza-flavoured yogurt. MVP doesn't seem impressed with the idea of pizza-flavoured yogurt, brogurt, if you will. And MVP says, I tell you what, come back and see me in a couple of weeks. Throw some ideas at us. And if they're good, we'll be in business. And if they're not, we'll be in business. I think he means it's going to hurt him when he does that. So Riddle and the Hurt Business getting into a thing. Speaking of the Hurt Business, Bobby Lashley in action next against Keith Lee. Winner going into the triple threat top contenders match next week. Big power play by Keith at the start, who just puts a hand on Bobby as he's walking towards him. And this just enrages Bobby. And Bobby tries to wear down Keith. He kind of does, actually. He's got this big headlock pulled in on him, and he's just dragging him to the ground, and eventually he gets him to the earth with a flatliner. Keith Lee, however, is able to push back soon after that. MVP runs distraction at one point. This allows Lashley to take control outside the ring, and Lashley able to put Keith on his shoulders and drive him into the ring post. I'm not sure whether it was planned that Lashley went down onto a knee as he went down, or whether Lashley sort of collapsed under the weight, but this still looked like a really cool spot. Lashley dominates after the break, goes for the hurt lock, but Keith Lee powers out of it, and this is where Keith gets a second win. They end up fighting around the ring after Lee pounces Lashley out of it, cross-body out of the ring, and MVP runs distraction, barging Lee into the turnbuckle post. MVP pushes Keith Lee into the turnbuckle post outside the ring, and it looks as if Lashley's going to win with the hurt lock in the ring, but Keith powers out and manages to drop Lashley on his back. MVP's had enough. He jumps into the ring, attacks Keith Lee, and Keith wins by DQ. Not much really happens after this point. Keith Lee heads back up the ramp. He's won the match by disqualification, and MVP's lost his cool. B- for this one. Some good power spots in this. The old big beefy boys battering each other malarkey. Big fan of that. But again, there's something about Keith Lee in these singles matches. He very rarely seems to have like solid wins. It seems shenanigans or countouts or DQs to get him through. I don't know whether there would have been another way you could have done this without the disqualification. I feel like it just felt a bit of a flat ending. Like, why would MVP, the professional businessman as he is, get flustered because Keith Lee keeps breaking the hurt lock? Maybe that's what it is. I don't know. It just seemed like a strange one to me. There was a lot in this to like, but finish was a bit meh. Alexa Bliss and Nikki cross one-on-one next. Before the match starts, Nikki backstage says she's going to beat the Fiend out of Alexa Bliss. She's done trying to be friends with her, and now it's come to this. Alexa Bliss playing silly buggers to start off with, and Nikki Cross isn't having it. She's overpowering Alexa Bliss, beating her up outside the ring, gets her back into the ring, and as she's putting the hurt on Bliss, Bliss is laughing. She's having a lovely time, laughing and joking and doing all the little rascal stuff as Nikki's beating her up. But then at one point, after being stomped in the corner, thrown into the corner, shoulder blocked and all this stuff, suddenly Alexa Bliss starts crying. Like she just starts tearing up. She's looking at her hands and she's asking Nikki for help, and Nikki's reluctant at first, and then eventually the two embrace in the ring, and then as they're hugging, Alexa Bliss goes buff flatliner, pins her 1, 2, 3, and Bliss heads off up the ramp smiling to herself, and Nikki just has a breakdown in the ring. This was some really good character work by both of them. I'm giving the whole match a B. I thought there was lots of good stuff in here. I really enjoy how Alexa Bliss has moved into this role as this evil delight, as this little rascal, if you will. It really brings out the best in her. And I hope that when all this blows over, I hope this isn't the end for Nikki Cross. I feel like the Nikki has stayed on Raw because of the stuff she's been doing with Alexa Bliss. So I hope that there is stuff for Nikki beyond this. My concern is she might just get lost in the shuffle. And Nikki's so good, like you could do more with her away from this. But for now, to be in the mix with Alexa Bliss, who's one of the hottest acts on Raw, associated with the Fiend, is worse places to be. And so we come to main event o'clock of Monday Night Raw, following a tribute video to The Undertaker. It is the final match in our series of 3 tonight, AJ Styles versus Randy Orton. The winner will go into the triple threat match. And it starts off with AJ nearly getting the win nice and early, getting a clear advantage early on Randall Keith. And Orton gets a thumb to the eye that leads to Randy taking control, doing the slow, methodical thing that Randy Orton does. There's a really cool spot just before the break, actually, where we have both men fighting outside the ring, and they stop for a moment, and the referee is looking at Randy Orton. And as the ref's looking at Randy Orton, we see AJ's security guard pick up AJ, put him on the ring apron, and then AJ does a running kick to Orton, which I thought was a really good use of players there. I liked that. Styles in control after the break, wearing down the leg of Randy Orton. Orton can't seem to find a way out of the match. Even goes for the RKO and misses, and it's a Pele kick from AJ Styles. As they ends up falling outside the ring, and while he's outside the ring recovering, leaning against the barricade, screeching is heard, the lights go red, and the Fiend appears behind him. Orton looks, and then as soon as he looks, he's disappeared. It's like, oh, okay. And then this ends up with Orton getting back into the ring, seemingly about to fall to the mercy of AJ, but Orton's quickly back in control, drops AJ with a hanging DDT. As he's setting up for an RKO, lights go out, screeching, red spotlight, the Fiend stood on the apron, Orton jumps when the Fiend growls at him, and as the lights come back on, Orton staggering around the ring, eats a phenomenal forearm for the 1, 2, 3. And AJ Styles punches his ticket to the match next week. This was a B- for a main event, like a WrestleMania caliber main event. They only said that about 37 times, you see. Didn't know whether that really hit home enough. And you know what? Their WrestleMania match was better than this. It was still a good match that they had. The Fiend stuff, I could take or leave. I get what they were doing. The issue I had was, it seemed like only Randy and the commentators could see the Fiend. Because at the end sequence, AJ was carrying on regardless. The ref didn't seem to really notice. And it was only Orton that was dazed by it all. And so it kind of has echoes of Orton and Undertaker with the stuff with Orton's dad covered in blood and all that stuff. Look it up, it's in the past. Or like Hogan Warrior with Warrior in the mirror. It has that kind of effect of, are we seeing this or is it just them seeing it because television? But the match itself was good. I don't know whether or not I'd have had all that stuff going on around it. Overall this week, Raw is a B-. A couple of things didn't really land properly for me, like the stuff in the main event, but there was a lot of good in there, there was a lot of great in there. The Raw Tag Team title match I thought was excellent, and that match between Sheamus and Riddle, just phenomenal wrestling from both of them. The highlight of the night for me. You know, distinct lack of Drew McIntyre, and I think that that match alone filled the void quite nicely. I love seeing Sheamus and Riddle go at it. And I, for one, am excited to see Riddle pitching some stuff to the Hurt Business. You know, maybe there is something in pizza-flavoured yogurt. Maybe there is a little something you can get from it, you know? Love you, bye. I ordered it without mushrooms. Who puts pineapple in a pizza yogurt as well? Not a fan. It's very crunchy.